Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the One Step Better podcast. I am Mike Schaefer, and with me today, we have a very special treat. We have Gia Rowland is going to be joining us. Gia is our marketing coordinator, handles a lot of the marketing and advertising and a lot of the content that comes out of this place. She has her hands on very, very intimately and does a great job with that. And so we're going to talk to Gia a little bit about our strategy, our history, kind of where we came from. And hopefully some of those concepts and ideas can translate over into what you guys are doing out there in running your organizations. Obviously, we're a service-based business, and we have a couple of different lines of service that we put out in the market. But some of the content and the strategies and concepts that we're going to talk about today could be used universally, whether you're a product-based business, service-based business, nonprofit, whatever it is. Hopefully, Gia is going to drop some wisdom on us. Educate me in all things marketing, because this is an area that I am admittedly weak in. I like pretty colors and nice logos and all that type of stuff, but I don't know how to create any of it. And I don't even really know what I like until I see it. So hopefully Gia is going to shed some light on that for us.
I'll
try.
I'm going to try.
That's all we try to do here. We try. Well, before we get started, we always like to have a fun question to get us kicked off. And since we're going to talk about marketing, advertising, branding, that whole genre, we're going to start with this. What is your favorite brand?
I would have to go with kind of a weird one. Definitely Yeet Yeet brand. It's a kind of country American brand. They've just done a really good job at developing that slogan, which has now become a saying that people say, like at concerts.
It's Yeeyeeyee.
Yeah. So I just think that for one is brilliant that he kind of came up with that and it's caught on and he can continue to market that to his audience. And then on top of that, he's really funny. So he knows how to like make people laugh. And they have a very distinct look with their logo, and they create stickers and flags and T-shirts, and they just get bigger and bigger every year. And I've been a big fan of theirs and a customer for like 4 years. And
Is it an apparel company?
apparel company, they create stickers. He's actually a country music singer, Granger Smith. But
I've
he's
heard that
just
name before.
yeah, he's done a really good job at creating a community with his brand, which is something you don't really see a lot. That's kind of hard for someone to do, especially with like a B2C marketing strategy. But he's been able to do that. So regardless if you like country or not, it's a pretty fascinating thing to study what he's done.
How did you get connected with him?
Country music. Yeah, he has an alter ego named like Earl Dibbles Jr., and he does really funny music videos, and then he's got a serious country persona, and they're just funny, and it's just about lifting your truck and being out in the country and
like traditional
going
country
mudding.
music
Yeah,
songs?
but he's really, really funny. He has a great sense of humor, and I think he's been able to kind of pull people together with that, and he also is a very charitable, and he's very open about his personal life, and those are all things that going into branding and marketing, I really appreciate seeing from someone
Connected with
else.
you. I always enjoyed, this is silly because I don't actually use any of these products, but all of the goofy insurance commercials,
hmm
whether it's Progressive and Flow and that whole gang, I find their stuff pretty funny. Even the Jake with State Farm
hmm
stuff, I think is funny. The emu, I forget, I think it's Liberty Mutual, maybe, I don't remember, but the emu that pops up and just runs around, I find that stuff hilarious. But again, I don't. Those are not my insurance
Yeah, it
companies.
all started with Geico. I mean, I think that just set the precedent for
Yeah.
insurance companies. It's kind of a serious thing, and they have to make it light somehow and funny. That's at least what I think, because almost
Yeah.
every insurance commercial
It's
is kind
silly.
of funny, and you're just kind of like, what are you talking about? Some of the Liberty Mutual ones, I'm like, I have no idea where this is going. There's no concept.
I
But
know, but
I don't know.
it is funny.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. I don't know if you remember this back in old Budweiser commercials. I
hmm
found really intriguing with the frogs, the big Clydesdales that they had, and they've
Yeah.
done a lot of good Super Bowl commercials too, which I always thought those were good. They did a good job there.
Yeah, there are a lot of great commercials. There's a whole wormhole you can go down in on YouTube of like 90s and 2000s commercials that we all kind of remember
Yeah.
but we've forgotten about, and you're like, "Man, that stuff we cannot do that nowadays. This is crazy."
It seems like there's been a shift. At least I don't know. Maybe this is where I get targeted from all of the your phone is listening type junk. But the there's it seems like people are trying to get away from like strong branding with images and
Mhm.
move towards video and use social media influencers or whatever it may be just to convince you that, hey, you know what, these cool kids are doing this or buying this product, maybe you should too.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that is it is 2021. I almost think that side of advertising is kind of dying. People want to connect with a person. They want to connect with somebody. And I mean, TikTok grew and their whole advertising last year, 2020, TikTok became a platform that everyone started to be on, even people like me that thought it was ridiculous and never
Yeah.
wanted to get on it. But people want to connect with somebody. And I think in the B2B world, we're always a couple years behind that B2C trend. So I think eventually, and then maybe the next year or two, we're going to start seeing more people coming in and wanting to represent a brand with B2B, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
I just this is where I'm very much like a get off my lawn old man because I don't understand social. I don't use social media very much. I'll look at Twitter for news updates, but I'm very selective in who I follow because I try to stay away from the argumentative Twitter side of things. Very, very rarely do I do anything on Facebook or Instagram. Never touched TikTok or any of those other platforms. I don't even know all the names of them anymore. How does, if you're trying to appeal to mass consumers today, what role does all of those different platforms and how do you try to stay ahead of what's coming up next?
I don't think I don't really believe in omni-channel marketing unless you are a really on a very large scale and you have the team to handle that. I think it gets out of hand. At some point, especially when you're a growing company, I don't think you need a Twitter, an Instagram, a Facebook, TikTok. I think you have to leverage what works for you the best and kind of gauge your audience, especially with a smaller team, and then go with what's working for you and where you're getting the most followings or where you're getting the most engagement on your post because it kind of creates a lot of work that's not getting a lot of attention. So I think that, instead of trying to branch out as much as you can and kind of spread your message or spread your brand, the best thing to do is focus on one or two that really work for you and then go from there. LinkedIn for B2B, as we all know, is the best thing that you can do. And it's actually better to have people that work for your company or for your brand be the big ones on LinkedIn instead of your own company. So your company could have 200 followers, but you or me or whoever else works here could have, over 5,000 followers or something. And we would be able to kind of leverage our brand better, especially as a B2B company, rather than our page being the one with all the likes. So that's a little different. On Facebook or Instagram, you're probably going to go to the company's page and they'll have 2.3 million followers, but with LinkedIn, it's very different. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind, I think, with social media strategy and picking one thing that works and then kind of running with it.
Yeah. Especially if you're a small business, a lot of times you just don't have the personnel or the budget even to stay
Yeah.
relevant across, I got these 10 up and coming platforms that nobody's heard of and you got 5 followers on each. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, and I think too, you have to take into account your audience. If you're not going for the younger Gen Z audience, your audience is probably not going to be on every new social platform that's coming out. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a relief
Yeah. Yeah, that's very
for
true.
me because I'm like, well, at least I'm not working for some company that's trying to market to Gen Z because I'd be like, I have no idea what to do. I
That's
don't.
that's one of the things that we've talked about a lot internally is in the past, we've spent a lot of money on Facebook ads or trying to push out, different ad dollars in different spots, really to find that our buyers aren't engaging with those ads at all. They're not engaged with those posts on social media. And we really kind of came to the conclusion that most of our buyers aren't in they're just not there. I mean,
Mhm.
they're on the platform, but they're not using the platform in the same way that someone from a younger generation who's in our world, not a business owner, whatever it may be, and it's not a target for us.
Yeah.
And we had to throw some money to figure that out because it is, a lot of times you'll see, or I hear, I get hit up all the time with SEO specialists and here we're going to fix this and do this and all this different stuff. And at the end of the day, man, it just doesn't seem to work for our company for
Yeah.
whatever reason. I don't even pretend to know.
Well, I think I mean, and it could be company specific. I also think that we're more focused on, outbound instead of inbound, which is, important. But I also think that maybe even last year with how much COVID and the pandemic changed everything, I do think we're going to see a big shift in more people being the front of a brand and at the forefront of a brand and representing that brand. I think because people want to see people, and we want to connect with them, and it's just on TikTok and on Instagram influencers, you're more likely to buy from someone that you follow, that you admire, that even instead of just a random brand that's advertising it on your on your feed. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if the business to business marketing can kind of get in that. And who would we pick as an influencer? Would it be like a LinkedIn influencer? Would there be someone on Instagram that would have a business that would be able to talk about what we do and share that and get other people to contact us? So it's going to be interesting to watch if that becomes a trend with marketing.
What do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Because you mentioned that typically B2B is a couple years behind the B2C, business to business versus business to consumer trends. Do you think that the B2B space is going to move towards some of the things that we're seeing right now in the direct to consumer?
I do. I've seen a really huge growth of B2B marketing on TikTok. I've seen a huge growth on Instagram. And obviously LinkedIn is the classic that we all go to for that. But I think LinkedIn is the best tool to leverage, but I have seen a huge growth rate on Instagram and TikTok. So I'm not really sure. I think people want to see more on that side of Instagram. What is this company doing behind the scenes? What's their work culture like? Like, is this a place I would want to work? And that projection of who we are as a brand is really more important. So it's like our marketing is really for the customer and branding is what the customer says about us. So if they are talking and saying good things about us as a brand, then that's really what we're going for. Marketing is just what we're doing to them. And if our marketing works, then our branding works because they're going to spread the message of what a great company we are and how we're good people. And I think if you've got that set in stone, then marketing and branding pretty much comes easy.
Well, where we've seen a big impact in our branding is in our hiring people. We haven't had an interview. I haven't done an interview with a potential candidate here in probably a couple of years that at some point it did not come up. Something about a blog that we had written, even this podcast gets mentioned a lot of times from candidates, the imaging on our website. And it's all, man, this place just looks a little bit, and we talked about a lot, we try to be different from the traditional accounting. And that branding is seen heavily by the candidates that we attract.
Yeah.
Which is it's a testimony to the work that you're doing behind the scenes to make sure that our stuff looks fresh, it looks crisp, and portrays the relevant messages.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely a big part of it for me. I remember I was sitting and applying for jobs, and I was with my best friend at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to work here. And I just was so excited. I was like checking my email every hour, like if they email me back, am I going to, because I did do my research, and I was just like, man, this is awesome. Especially, I think coming from another type of company, you're just so grateful and so excited to start at somewhere that you're like, okay, this looks amazing. Like the work culture looks healthy, and it looks like they're a family, and they prioritize your 5 to 9 over your 9 to 5, and they kind of put that first. So that was a huge thing for me. And you don't see that a lot. It's kind of rare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So whenever you think about content creation, because you do, I think just about all of our content creation you have your hands in some way. When it comes to pushing stuff out, what are you trying to portray? If it's an Instagram message or post, maybe an image with like a sentence or two, what are you trying to convey in those messages?
About our brand?
About us specifically.
I think my biggest thing on social media is just, again, trying to kind of tell who we are as people and as our company, like who we are. And again, in our 5 to 9 part of life more, and our work culture. But also I think more on the work side, trying to proposition us as an expert and someone that you can trust. And we're gonna take a load off of your shoulders, and we're gonna make your life easier, and you're gonna be able to enjoy, golfing or going to the beach or hanging out with your family. So kind of emphasizing again that what are you doing after work over what you're doing at work, and focusing on the positive. I think that kind of, makes people associate our brand with something positive and associate our brand with something that they do love, and kind of giving them that freedom and being someone that they trust and that they can look to, and we're an expert on what they're confused about or what they don't know about. And I also think, and what I'm trying to do now is when we are targeting maybe a certain type of client, I'm trying to give them their expertise and say, hey, you're really great at this. We can't do this, but we can help you with this, and we can take this off of your plate, because, it's flattery, but also it's being honest. And like, I've never done this before. I may have never owned a restaurant, or I was not a vet, or I didn't go to optometry school, but I can help you do payroll, or I can help you with your finances. So kind of, being honest, I think, and also adding a little bit of humor in there is what my goal is for our marketing overall.
How do you know when your efforts are successful or have been successful? What are some things that you're tracking behind the scenes or looking at to make sure that, you know what, that either hit the mark or that didn't go as well as you hoped?
I really am looking right now. We're trying to focus pretty largely on our email marketing. So I'm looking at if people actually read our email, if they glanced through it, skimmed through it, and if they read it and actually took the time to read through the whole email, because that tells me they are interested. Something piqued their interest. They actually took their time, or they don't care and they marked us as spam and they unsubscribed from our messages. So the last one that we sent out, I was really happy to know that even though we didn't have a huge open rate on it, everyone read that email. 100% of them read it, and 100% of them were interested, and none of them unsubscribed or marked us as spam, or there was no bounce rate on any of that. So that excited me because I was like, okay, this resonated with them, and they were able to, get a little bit interested in what we're doing and how we can possibly help them. So I'm looking at email. Social kind of comes with time, I think, and maintaining that right now and building that kind of behind the scenes. But I think a big part of what we're trying to do right now is get our website in order and make sure that our brand has a great face and looks pretty, I guess, to the client, but also that our copy and our messages are really strong and on point.
We don't want to push stuff out that's not pretty.
Yeah. I'm trying my best.
You do a good job. I think all of our stuff looks pretty good. I don't pretend to know how to do any of that stuff. There's a different mindset that you have in the creative side of things that I just don't have. And so there's a lot of business owners out there that are similar to that. If they're not in a creative space, they may not have that skill set themselves. So how do you, what would you recommend? Like, where do you get started on wanting to either get into the social world or email marketing, whatever it may be? What's those first couple of steps to really start to put together some type of strategy department? Where do you start?
I think that as far as creatively goes on that end, it's a muscle, and you kind of have to practice every day until you like what you see. I do think that one of the biggest sides of email marketing and social media is making sure that your content does look like you took time and you care about what you're putting out to the rest of the world and how they're seeing you. I do think that's important. But at the end of the day, I got into it in a really weird way, and I kind of learned everything on the job. I started out in graphic design and then ended up in marketing. And I think a lot of it is understanding people and being really empathetic with what people want and starting there. Because if you don't know what your customer wants or your target audience wants, then you're just going to be lost the entire time in marketing. So understanding who you're targeting, your target audience, and really getting a grasp on that, understanding what kind of content you do want to create, what's going to be the most useful content for that customer, whether that's a PDF, a landing page, an infographic that they're going to download, a podcast that they're going to listen to, figuring out what is going to be valuable for them to constantly come back to. And then outside of that, just continuing and being really consistent with what you do over and over and over again. And all the complicated stuff will come to you over time. All the analytics and results and the Facebook ads and the pixels and all the things that are a little bit intimidating, especially they were intimidating for someone like me at first. Those things just kind of come to you after a while. But if you focus, I think, on the broader idea of being empathetic and wanting to understand the person that you're marketing to, I think you're going to win no matter what.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with all of the software that's out there to do the graphic stuff?
The software, I got really lucky. My uncle started training me. He has a graphic design company, and he started training me when I was like 15. So I did a mix of doing it by myself at home and then going over with him and him teaching me kind of everything I know. As far as like email marketing and website stuff, that definitely was sprinkled throughout pretty much all my work history, me doing it on the side. And then my last job that was a true marketing position, I just had to learn fast and on the fly. So it was a lot of me staying up nights and taking notes and watching LinkedIn videos and watching YouTube videos and figuring out what all of it meant. So
I remember whenever you've been here for 3 months. Is that,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember in our one of our first interviews way back when, you talked about in your last job, it was at a finance company, that you guys created a mascot essentially to put a face to the name of the company. Talk a little bit about why you think having a face or a person, or in this case, a mascot for a company is a good idea.
I think it makes the company way more relatable, and I think people like cute things, and I think they like to laugh, and I think that just makes it less intimidating. what we were doing is we were basically trying to help Hispanics have a bank account here. So that's basically what our thing was. And that can be really scary and intimidating to them. So how can I think through a mascot that's going to make them feel like they're home again? It's going to make them proud to do banking with us. But that's also going to be cute and something that they like to see on their credit card or like to see when they open their app. So that was my thinking behind that. But I think it kind of breaks down a lot of walls for people. I think that's the beautiful thing about art and design is you can take something really heavy and make it really, really pretty or make it interesting. And, it's like the old Tex Avery cartoons or, Bugs Bunny. Sometimes the subject matter was not light, but you end up laughing anyway. And you're kind of like, why am I laughing? If you're an adult and you watch them, you're like, wow, some of this content's really kind of dark, but you're still laughing at it, and it's still really funny. So the ability for them to do that, I think that's an incredible talent.
Yeah, that's a good point because I know that I have gone back and watched old cartoons or whatever it may be, and they'll absolutely just have a scene of favorite cartoon figure smoking a cigar in a bar while he's drinking or something like that. And as a kid, I never picked up on that stuff. But I was like, oh my goodness, there's Bugs Bunny going crazy.
I know, it's wild. I got the Boomerang channel and I've been watching all the old cartoons and I'm just like, this is so funny. Like I never would have thought this as a kid, but the subject matter is pretty funny and kind of dark, but they do a great job of that. So
it's like they're hiding their messaging.
Yeah, it's a skill for sure.
What do you think for Works in Patrick County? Do you think we'll ever have a mascot?
Yeah, I think we've kind of had that in the works for a little bit. No pun intended. In the works for a little bit. I would love to see Works really develop one that, kind of says who we are and what we want to do, and maybe go with kind of have an athletic feel to it. since we're helping people kind of work out. Yeah. Again, no pun intended, but definitely pun intended there.
Definitely.
But yeah, I would love to see something that makes payroll and HCM and HR a little bit less scary and a lot more comfortable. And I do think it works. I've watched my uncle do a lot of really incredible animated videos, and they are about heavy subjects, and they've done great. Like he did one on, I think, The Gene, which is about cancer, and he made it really beautiful, and it was intriguing to watch. And you were watching it for 5 minutes, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really heavy subject matter, but it's less intimidating, and I'm learning something as well. So I think being able to like educate somebody in a video like that and have a mascot that is cute or funny, and also being able to educate them at the same time is the moneymaker.
It takes the edge off a little bit.
Yeah,
it's a little more approachable.
A lot more approachable. Yeah.
I'm excited to see where that goes.
We'll see.
Yeah, you never know, right? We're not going to commit right now, but
yeah,
maybe like a golden retriever. I don't know. This is where I'm going to say, all right, here's all of the things, and she's going to write them down. I'm like, yeah, Michael has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
No, I love dogs, so I'd be down with that.
Yeah, dogs are fun. One of the things that comes up frequently in different industry groups that we're part of, and it's a constant subject in the realm of marketing, is how often, specifically on social media, how often should I create content, post content, whether it's blog or just simply I'm going to put out a Facebook post. How often? What does that look like for the content creation side?
I am a big believer in great content over consistent content. That's just something that I think is way more important, especially for a smaller business. Now, for a larger business, they have a team and they have the ability to do 2 posts a day on all channels. But especially for a smaller team, going back to what I said earlier, I think it's really important to find 1 or 2 things that work for you and then do those as consistently as you can. But at least every time you're posting, make sure it's really good content and it's content that someone's going to be attracted to. So, if you're going to do a LinkedIn post and, have a great blog post and the podcast attached to it and promote that and see where that goes. And if it's on Instagram, maybe showcase a local thing that your company is involved in, or showcase a nonprofit that you're involved in, or your company giving back to your community. And maybe that's only once every 2 weeks, but you're doing something that might attract more attention. You can hashtag it more, you can share it, you can promote it instead of constant kind of being on social media all of the time and maybe taking away from your own time that you need to focus on something else, but also slowly building it and making sure that your page looks good and that people can come to that page and know that you know exactly what you're talking about and let your company culture shine through. So I do think that the quality of your content is way more important than the consistency of your content on social media.
You made a mention to something I think is interesting. It, it shouldn't be difficult to find interesting content to post. I know some of the things that we do is not necessarily generate original content, but we may repost, and I don't know what the technical words are. If we see like a brand that we like working with or that we want to work with, we'll start tagging them and reposting some of their stuff on social media if they're generating good content. And that doesn't take a ton of time on our end. We may see, hey, you know what, that brand is tweeting something that looks cool or putting something out on Instagram, whatever, and we'll take that and just tag them back on it. Even in that same vein, the quality content we create always gets repurposed in multiple ways. So we're going to record this podcast at some point here in the future, because this will post, I don't know, Becky, probably mid-June, second week of June. So what Becky will do with this is she'll take it, strip the audio out, turn it into a transcript. She'll take those transcripts, find a couple of blurbs that will turn into social posts. She'll also take some of this stuff and turn it into a blog that we will most likely, if I ever stick on my schedule, actually get around to developing that content a little bit further and write it out. But this will take on my day, a part of my day, your day. This will take us 30 minutes to record or so. Becky spends a lot of time behind the scenes, setting it up and taking it from there and cutting it and all that jazz. But from this 30-minute podcast, we'll turn this into like quite a few posts, right?
Yeah. And the thing is that I was reading the other day is we can repurpose that over and over and over again. Pulling quotes from the podcast and making a graphic out of that, and putting someone's face to it or getting a 30-second blurb out of it and posting it, or 30-second part of a video and posting it, and just repurposing that over and over and over again. So you create kind of a library of content that you can always go back and pull from and share on any channel that you have. So that's definitely something I do want to do eventually, is get into having all that content backlog that we can pull from at any time.
Yeah. And to let everybody in behind the curtain a little bit, that's why we started the podcast originally, is it does give us a frequent stream of content that can be repurposed in other avenues and other channels down the road. Because what we found is that it was nearly impossible. So here's our history. We've been doing marketing for a long time, but we've been doing it, somewhat well or just kind of okay. And we've engaged with a couple of different marketing firms over the years that helped us get, I'll say, one step better, right? And they would, we need to work on this, and they would help us work through that. And then we would kind of take that and go. And what a lot of times what that turned into is there were a lot of stuff that came from that content that required attention from either Matt or myself or someone in our company. All right, you got to take this, and now we need to write a blog or whatever it may be. And we just simply didn't do it. Most of the time it was just, we didn't have time to get back in and go knock that stuff out. And so what we decided to do was, if we put a time on the calendar every week to come up to this studio and record a podcast, we live off our calendars. And so that's sacred. So we're going to do it. And this is the time in which we have dedicated to say, all right, we're going to, I'll say, write a blog in air quotes, but it's really just talking through a podcast. And this is something that we're learning or something that's been, helpful for our organization, that we know that other people out there, other, business leaders or owners struggle with. And that really kind of turned into a big marketing channel for us.
Yeah, it's awesome because, podcasts, they proposition you as a thought leader, and you're talking about a lot of high level questions or, things that other companies are struggling with right now. And it's also nice for other companies or business owners to hear that, oh, they're going through this or they went through this and now they're here. Yeah. So I think that's huge. And podcasts, I think it's definitely probably one of the best things, if not the best thing as a B2B company to invest in and take time to do.
Yeah, that's my goal, is just to show empathy, because I know that a lot of the stuff that we've struggled with over the years is not unique to us.
Yeah.
Because we've talked to, other accounting firms, other payroll bureaus, other just small businesses in general. And a lot of the things that we talk about on this podcast are some of the things they're struggling with. And we're not, we don't think of ourselves as thought leaders, even though that's probably the right term to use. And we think of ourselves as, we've struggled through this and we've learned a couple of things and we're still learning the rest of the things. And to bring some light onto those so that other people can listen in and say, yeah, I struggle with that too. And it's been fun to do, but it does help us generate content on a frequent basis, and it's consistent. Now, our listeners may debate the quality of that content, but it is no doubt consistent.
Yeah, I love it. I listen every week and I always learn something new.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. We have one listener out there, right?
I think you got more than that.
We do.
Probably.
Yeah, we do. We do. I get, every once in a while, I'll make some just silly statement, or we'll talk about our question of the day or whatever, and I'll get emails that are. I got one just this past week. We were talking about Mandy, Matt's wife, Mandy, who's our firm administrator, doesn't like chocolate.
Yeah.
And I got an email from one of my friends that listens to the podcast, is also in the industry with us, and she said that she doesn't like chocolate either. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's 2 people in this world that don't like chocolate, and it blew my mind.
My roommate doesn't like chocolate, and I don't
3
get it.
people in this world.
I don't get it at all.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, but it's fun to get those types of comments from our listeners, because it's it does show that they're listening and
they're paying attention.
They're paying attention to what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, rarest form of generosity, being paid attention to.
Yeah. Well, Gia, as you are looking at not necessarily expanding, but growing the marketing side of what we're doing, what are some of the goals that you have for 2021 and going forward?
I think top of mind is, of course, getting our websites really up to date and making sure that they're current and user friendly and easy to navigate. I think that once you kind of have those building blocks there, you can build on that. We can build on that from a social media point of view. We can build on that from a design point of view. So really ironing out our brand and knowing the small details of what look do we want to go to, what colors do we want to use, what font are we going to use, and having that there, and then being able to push that across all platforms of what we're doing is really important to me, because it maintains consistency. So anytime someone sees our brand, they know that that's our brand. I think also for me, it's really important for us to continue to be consistent, especially with the podcast, grow our social media. I would really love to see us get some leads from social media. It's a personal goal of mine.
Yeah.
Connect with brands over a long time on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and then, set up a meeting. That would be huge for me. And then I think on top of that, probably just designing good content. Yeah. And just making sure that everything that we do looks good and people enjoy it, and trying to get our email marketing, seeing more people open our newsletters and enjoy them and read them and get back to us, or notice something in the newsletter, just like they do the podcast, and go, wow, I enjoyed that, or I learned something new. And so I think that's kind of where I would love to see us go for 2021, but definitely growing our social and getting our websites looking really good. And just making our brand look pretty, but also showing who we are as a company and a culture.
Well, you do a good job with that. I know that you're not on this alone. Becky, who we talk about and have fired multiple times in this podcast, and she's the butt of all of our jokes up here. She does a phenomenal job in doing all of the marketing and branding and posting and social and all of the things as well. We really appreciate what you guys are doing. Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Another common thing that we get hit up on from other accounting firms and payroll service bureaus is what are the tools that we use? And so from a marketing standpoint, what are some of the tools that you use on a daily basis to do your job?
We use HubSpot. So we use that for our email and social media, and I do love it. It's very user-friendly. Support is great. If you've got a question, they're always right there. So we use HubSpot mainly for our email and for our landing pages. And then for the website, we use WordPress Beaver Builder, which is the best if you're trying to build a WordPress website. And then aside from that, I'm really heavy on Photoshop and Illustrator. So a lot of people want to use Adobe Spark and Canva, but I guess I have control issues. So I really like being in full control and making all of our designs very personal and, well, just relevant to our brand. So sometimes you lose that control when you go on Canva or Spark. So I like to be pretty heavy on Illustrator and Photoshop.
You have the skill set to use those things too, though.
Yes, I do. Yeah, but once you know it, you don't want to go to anything else. You're like, nope, I want full control over this.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I'm kind of just out there. I'm kind of a lone ranger. I don't really use anything for social media. I just kind of create, post, and go. So I'll hopefully work up to that at some point. But right now, I'm just trying to figure it out.
Well, very good. Well, Gia, I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a lot of fun to talk about marketing. And again, this is something that I remember the first time that we were sitting in a demo with a potential outsource marketing firm that we were looking at using, and they started going through all of the big data that is kept and stored from website visits or email sends and whatever, and they showed this whole big presentation on down to you could see the mouse, where it's being clicked on and how long they're looking at it and what website they went to next and and it's like, oh my goodness, this is insane.
Yeah, Hotjar's great. We're integrating that into our website right now. So I'm really excited to see the metrics on that once we get all that enabled. But yeah, it'll be fun. I think we're kind of building everything right now and integrating those tools. So once that's all up and running, hopefully at the end of this month, early July, we'll be able to really see our metrics and who's visiting our website more. So that'll be fun.
That's insane. Yeah. And before long, you'll have, your smartphone is going to be listening for Patrick Accounting and Works to be mentioned.
I know. And y'all are going to I'll be getting my ads in the Instagram feed for Patrick Accounting.
That's right. Don't worry. We're going to start listening in on everybody's conversations as well. Why? Oh boy. You can't beat them. You might as well join them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not really.
No.
Well, Gia, like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. We do have one question, and because I know you're the marketing expert, but because you're up here, you get to answer last week's question too. So not to put you on the spot, but here's the question that a viewer wrote in. If an employee decides to work on their vacation, do I have to recoup the full amount of their PTO if they requested, if there is no real way to quantify how many hours did they work? All right, I want to rephrase the question to you, Gia. And she's sitting here like, I don't know if I want to answer this. If you took PTO and you were planning on a vacation, but then you decided, you know what, I'm going to work instead, what would be your expectation for how that got resolved?
Well, I'm taking PTO for the first time on next Friday to count it down, so this is really relevant. I don't know. I feel like I guess personally part of vacation is just kind of getting away. So for me, if I was getting on a couple times a day and slacking somebody or emailing something, I don't know. I guess integrity wise, I would feel weird about like taking back PTO if I'm also, I don't know, on the beach drinking a margarita. It would feel kind of weird. So I don't know. I guess if you worked a whole day, I think that day should be given back. But yeah, not the entire. I don't think the entire. Entire days. I would disagree with that. I think that's a little heavy.
That's a good answer. I want to approach this from two angles because I don't really know the context here. If you have an employee that was scheduled to take PTO, but then they decided to work and they're working the full day, you got to ask yourself, is this a battle that you're really willing to fight? Hey, you took PTO and you decided to work. Because a lot of times that's just simply, hey, I forgot to tell you that I need to cancel that PTO day. And if that's the case, don't die on that hill. Just give them their PTO hours back and call it good. But if it is, I'm going to go, I'm on PTO, but I'm also going to check in a couple times, during the day. And there is no way to quantify those hours. I would just simply say, hey, you were on PTO. Yeah. The way that we expect things to happen is if you're on PTO, you're on PTO. We don't want you slacking us or joining the daily huddle or, checking in. That's not our expectation. But at the same time, we know that those things, like I was just gone for about a week and I checked emails often. I try not to respond to any and I try not to slack, but there's no chance I would go back and say, you know what, I worked for a total of 48 minutes, so I need 48 minutes of PTO back. You're starting to split hairs at that point. And so as long as you do right by your employees and don't try to, overkill policy here, I think you'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Excellent. Well, Gia, I appreciate your time today. If you guys are out there listening, we really thank you for tuning in and joining us for this edition of the One Step Better podcast. We'd love to hear from you. What are some of the challenges that you're experiencing in your marketing area? Maybe you haven't started one yet, or you've been a longtime marketer and you have some ideas that could help us out. We would love to hear from you. You could send those emails to onestepbetter@patrickaccounting.com, or you can find us on all of our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I think we're in so many places. And so just find us, or you could just leave a comment on YouTube or wherever you listen to this podcast, and we would love to hear from you. So thanks, everybody, and y'all have a great day.